morning and welcome to another episode of Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at the Get-Go Cafe and Market, where Miss Taylor here can occasionally be seen taking down a milkshake.
They're my new favorite right now. It's a newer one, cotton candy. It's incredible. And
I was there with you
when
when
I got the
you
first one.
saw it. No, just when you made eye contact with the sign, and it was like you could hear the angels and the harps playing.
Well, it's beautiful. It's like
and
it's
me
like
and Sunday are like, what's going on with her?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I wanted to, it's just like I got it just because it looks so good. But then, oh my God, yeah, no, it's my favorite so far.
Now that also reminds me that's the time when we were driving around to cover the New York Islanders looking like the world's greatest hockey team.
It feels like 10 years ago.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So here we are. The Islanders are the 9th team in NHL history to sweep a series and then get swept in the very next round. Is what we saw in that first round, was that an illusion, or was that just the Penguins being that bad?
I don't think it's either. I think maybe just different approaches. I don't think it's necessarily the Penguins are that much worse than the Hurricanes. I mean, the Hurricanes are a very good team. I think it's just different approaches. The Hurricanes are a very analytical team. They put a lot of stake into analytics this season. I don't know if that's so. I think it's just different approaches. It's not necessarily.
It's funny that you mention that, because after Game 4 of the Hurricanes' elimination of the Islanders, Rod Brindamore, who's not usually the chattiest type, stood in front of reporters and said, you know, when I faced you, this was in Raleigh, when I faced you people after our very first game, it was against the Islanders, and we lost in overtime, but we outshot them like 40-20, and you're all acting like we're just the same old Hurricanes. And he said, I was trying to tell you back then that we're not.
Yeah, I mean, and they made a lot of changes this season too.
They did.
I mean, the coaching alone, but I mean, they're just such a young, fast team. But I think, it's something Rutherford touched on in his postseason press conference, that maybe the Penguins didn't want it enough. He kind of questioned their effort, their commitment level, or just how well they came together. And like, you look at the Hurricanes, and they're a team that really came together well. It's like I've seen, they practice and they're out there for together like an hour after practice because they don't want to get off the ice because like they're that close with each other. And the Penguins didn't have that.
Well, isn't it funny, because I mean there were a couple of old dudes in Canada who made fun of them for the post-game celebrations and everything. Don Cherry. But we're looking at a situation that team found some kind of mojo too. So between that, you're mentioning the young and fast guys, but they also brought in Justin Williams, who was the one. Probably, it's funny that for as much as we talk about the Hurricanes being young and fast, you're still talking about Justin Williams, Jordan Staal, Peter Mrazek. These are older guys.
I mean, Williams, Mr. Game 7,
right.
He set up. He had the primary assist on the series-winning goal against the Caps. I mean, yeah, they have that good mix.
Yeah, and the celebrations were actually his thing. He was the one that said, "Let's bring in the Iceland clap." And then
I think it was Don Cherry. It was like when first started. Like, can you imagine Justin Williams doing this? It's like,
it was his idea, dude. Exactly. So the Islanders, basically, to what you're saying, style-wise, ran into a team that was going to do this. This is, in my opinion. What you said, they were fast, they forechecked them, they stayed in their zone, they generated shots. However, the Hurricanes' method of shot suppression, as long as we're talking about analytics, was rooted in the fact that they have maybe the most mobile defense core in hockey. Instead of going the way the Penguins did, just with varying degrees of success, bulking up, getting bigger, they just said, we're just going to fly it out of the zone, and they did.
Yeah, well, I mean, just zone entries in general. I mean, you look at the series, the Penguins-Islanders series. The Penguins really struggled with that.
They couldn't get out. They talked about it during the series.
It's like though the Penguins couldn't get off clean rushes against the Islanders. Like, there was never really a chance when, especially in the games at the end where they came flying up the ice and you thought they were going to have a good shot at a goal. It's like they just never had that.
No, there wasn't a lot there, and this was a matchup thing. So last week for our website, you wrote, I'm going to estimate here, 11,871 words.
I mean, that's exact.
Give or take, on the Penguins' entire system. Now, out of all of those prospects, usually you can just say, snap your finger and say, well, the number one prospect is Daniel Sprong.
Yeah.
Who is the number one prospect in this system?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy answer. They don't have a clear standout like
Like
they
a
have
Sprong.
in years
Yeah.
past. There's also, I mean, guys are in different stages of their careers. You know, it's their top prospect of who's going to make it to the NHL first. There's, you know, who has the most upside. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. The guy with the most upside, I mean, I would say is Philip Hollander. He's a
Really?
forward, second-round pick. He's Swedish. He just played his first professional season in Sweden, and I mean
the
that's
top level.
That's huge. That's huge. He at his age, he's 19, playing in the top, you know, Swedish men's league against like guys in their 30s, like really.
Now, in a
big
small
guys,
role or
yeah.
in a bigger role?
No, I mean, so he was on the team called Timrå. He was on their top line all season, top line on the left wing. And I mean, they're putting him out there in all kinds of situations because I mean they were a bad team, and I mean he handled it so well. Bill Guerin recently, you know, in a radio appearance said they were really impressed with how he handled that responsibility, and how I mean he really didn't seem to have any trouble adjusting to that level. The thing of Hollander is he's not close to making the NHL just because
of course not. Well, you reported he's staying over another year anyway.
Yeah, he's so young. He's staying in Sweden another year. He's moving teams to a better team, so that's a good step in his development.
And it doesn't prevent him from coming over for camps.
Yeah, he'll come over for camps. Next season, if their season ends early, he can even come over playing Wilkes-Barre at the end of the season. He didn't have an opportunity to this year, but yeah, he.
So the closest, since you referenced this earlier, the closest in terms of a high-quality prospect would be, I don't know, Sam Lafferty? I don't know. Who is it?
He's probably going to be the next forward up next season.
Among prospects.
Among the prospects. He just played his first professional season too.
They really like him, Taylor.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I told you when I was up in Toronto that Jim Rutherford had a talk with me about him. I actually remember calling you leaving the rink there to tell you about it because he was just so excited about what he saw from him. I think he has almost surprised them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, and I mean he finished, you know, he was the rookie leading scorer. He finished second scoring on Wilkes-Barre. I mean that's huge for
as a rookie. For a kid, yeah.
I mean Kasper Bjorkqvist is another guy who's probably close, and I mean he hasn't even gone pro yet. He's in Providence College. He could go pro this summer. He hasn't signed yet. It's always up to the player if they leave college a year early to go pro. The team doesn't force them one way or another.
This is another second-round pick.
Yeah, and Guerin.
They're all second-round picks. What am I saying? They don't have first-round picks.
I mean, Bjorkqvist. If you see him in development camp, like in his street clothes, he's huge. Like he's so built.
He's filled out.
Yeah, and Scott Young and Bill Guerin have both called him a specimen, just because of he's that fit. And Guerin has said that he's broken all of their, you know, when they do their fitness testing records.
He smashes all the records.
He's shattering the and I'm pretty sure that includes like the big team. Like he's so mature. Listening to him talk too. He's a guy that compare him to Hornquist for good reason. It's, you know, that two-way game, and he's really strong in front of the net. Most of his goals for Providence College came in front of the net this season. I mean, he has some deficiencies too, but he's just his maturity and like his physical fitness is probably, you know, one of the closest guys.
Yeah, he's got the Q and the V together in the last name. Okay, I want this part on the record first. I've been a proponent, a vocal one, a written one of women's hockey at all levels. I've covered it at the highest level. I'm proud to have gotten to know some of the top women's hockey players, not just in the United States program, but the Canadian program, the Finnish program, in covering the Vancouver and the Sochi Olympics. That said, for this segment, I'm going to be that guy. And you know who you are because you were ticking her off in comments on the site this week. So I'm going to be that guy and ask you, Taylor, why I should care that the women's players are boycotting a league that I wasn't watching and that very few people were watching.
Yeah.
Why should I care about that?
So they're boycotting North American professional hockey because of the conditions they currently play under, which $2,000 a year no health insurance for some of these players.
Right.
I mean, they're playing under unsafe conditions. That's I mean,
no skate sharpeners at some
no
rinks,
skate
which is
sharpeners,
crazy.
It's dangerous.
It is, but why should
Yeah.
who should come in and clean this up? If no one's going to watch it anyway, why should somebody clean this up?
Well, I mean, people are watching it. The league, the growth they saw this year was crazy, but I mean, they need the resources to grow the product. I mean, they're trying to make it a better product. The NHL stepping in is a potential path. They've said that they would do that before if there's no North American.
So that's what this is. Why don't they just come out and say that what they really want here is to kill the NWHL and have the NHL step in? Because Bill Daley and to a lesser extent Gary Bettman have both said that if they're going to come in, they want there to first be no CWHL, no NWHL. Well, CWHL just went under. So why don't they just tell the NWHA, hey, stop, NWHL, stop existing?
The word Gary Bettman has said before is they don't want to bully the NWHL out of
Oh,
existence.
there's the key word.
Well, and they don't want to work with the NWHL. They want complete control, which
Sure they do.
They do. Okay, yeah, because they've said if we take this over, we're not going to let it fail.
Right.
Now that's not what the players are saying.
But
that's
it
not what they're.
is.
Well, okay.
But you know it is.
But there's ways to fund the NWHL. I mean, they have corporate sponsors. Dunkin' Donuts is one of the biggest ones. They have individual backers. One of the co-owners of the Rangers.
But they've also said that the NHL's $100,000 payment is the biggest one that they get from anybody, which means their corporate sponsors aren't that huge. Mm-hmm. I just in the NBA, which is the role model for this sort of thing, the NBA controls the WNBA. Mm-hmm. That's no doubt in my mind. Taylor, you and I have been going back and forth for a long time now on what is it that keeps the Penguins, specifically the Penguins, from getting involved in this. I guarantee you this is the answer. Well, they didn't want anything to do with the NWHL as it's presently constituted.
The Penguins?
Yeah, I guarantee that.
Well, no, I mean, the NWHL has said they've received interest from teams who want, okay, so right now the NWHL owns and operates all teams in the league except for Buffalo. Buffalo is owned by the Pagulas.
The Pagula family, yeah, the Sabres.
That just happened this year. Mm-hmm. The NWHL has said they've received interest from other NHL owners or ownership groups who want a similar partnership. You have to imagine that the Penguins are one of them after, I mean, they've hosted the NWHL.
And you can express interest.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to open a wallet here like the Pagulas did. Mm-hmm. I just still see this as being an NHL thing. This is, why don't the 200 women who made these statements and then ended up getting the backings of the NFL Players Association, eventually a somewhat muted backing from the NHL Players Association. It's crazy that football had to step up first. Why don't they just come out and say, look, the NWHL thing isn't working. We want the NHL to do this, so we're willing to do whatever it takes to work with whomever, but we want to get associated with the NHL. Just be direct about it.
Some women have come out and say that. The problem is that a lot of them do have varying viewpoints. Some of them aren't even in the boycott at all, and they're just going to play wherever. And I think, I mean, it's important to talk about, a lot of people say that guy, like, oh, they don't deserve to be paid, but they argue points that they're not making. Like, the women aren't trying to make what the NHL players make. They're just trying to get a livable wage.
Sure.
Because
they'll all tell you
they can't put the best product on the ice until they have, like, the bare minimum resources. There are women, I mean, they can't even practice as much as the men because they can't afford to live in the cities in which they play. Shannon Zavadas played for Buffalo. She was living in Ohio. Kendall Coyne-Schofield.
Wow. If you can't afford to live in Buffalo.
Kendall Coyne-Schofield played for Minnesota. She was living in LA because she couldn't justify moving. They're not making enough. So, I mean, when you have people commuting like that and when they're getting paid so little, they're working second jobs.
Okay, now I'm that guy again, and I'm playing the violin here and everything else here, but I want to know why it matters is if the attendance isn't there, if the interest isn't there.
They're trying to put a better product on the ice to grow the interest. Obviously, they're not at the level the NHL is. They're not trying to get there in the next 5-10 years. They're just
or
trying
ever
to put,
necessarily, right?
I mean, you look at what the women have put together. Growing up, they don't have anything near the same opportunities the men have. I mean, just the major junior hockey. That boys grow up playing at a high level, even like the USHL, Women don't have anything like that. And what they put on the ice is still a very good product. So if they could have something, anything, where, I mean, they can... they can't afford to have long pro careers.
Well, I'll go out of that guy character here for a moment and support that from a different standpoint. Another one is that you do have to have the ability to promote.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the Olympics affords, and it's only every 4 years, is everyone's watching. So as a result, when they do watch it and they see that it's a good brand of hockey, you're not going to compare it. You heard me say this before, but it's just I always view it as like a different sport. I view it as just appreciate the different aspects, the nuances that come with this. Same thing goes for women's basketball, or for that matter, women's tennis, which is actually, a lot of people will argue, is a superior brand of tennis to men's tennis. But you have to promote it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something they're asking for. And if, I mean, you look back at when the women's national team boycotted, they were threatening to boycott the World Championships. That was one of their biggest things, like marketing. They didn't think USA Hockey marketed the
Well, it wasn't an opinion. They weren't.
Yeah, they weren't. Yeah. They didn't market it enough. They didn't have a development program for the women to help them grow their game. It's not. The point is, it's not always about the money. Pay us more. They're trying to put a better product on the ice. And the people, they ask, like, why should I watch this? Or like, I think, okay, so like that guy.
That guy is the one who asks questions like that. Yeah.
I don't think, not watching women's hockey, that's not inherently sexist. No, like some people only like the NHL team in their city. They're not necessarily a hockey fan.
I'll say it again. There's some people who prefer to watch women's tennis over men's tennis. It's just a better brand.
I mean, the people that go out of their way to tear down women's hockey, like the people that don't. There's a lot of people that don't want to see it grow, and that has nothing to do with the product on the ice.
Yeah, I think those people aren't interested in the first place. They're just trying to.
No, but I mean, okay, so I'm not interested in.
Yeah, you're not.
I'm not interested in lacrosse. I'm not gloating when.
I'm
not gloating when the MLL folds 3 teams.
What's the solution here ultimately? Is somehow one way or another, Gary Bettman, oh my goodness, has to step up and take charge. He really does.
I mean,
that's probably it. That's where this is headed. And then from there, member clubs, including the Penguins and the Flyers, I might add, need to be at the forefront to make sure that there are franchises in very healthy markets like the 2 in Pennsylvania. And from there, you'll see.